Welcome back to Southpaw Picks, and you're here with your host, Charles. And we're going to be breaking down UFC 270, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2. We got the middleweight championship on the line, 15 fights on the docket, and without making bones about it, it's probably the hottest pay-per-view we've had in a couple months. I know not the most notable names that some people may recognize, but we got a lot of ranked fighters on here. It's just a high-level competition from start to finish, so very, very excited for this Saturday. But we're going to start at the first fight of the night, a welterweight bout, Jeremiah Wells versus Mike Mathetha. And we're going to start with Mike Mathetha. He comes out of New Zealand, training out of CKB, which is Israel Adesanya's camp. He's a long-time veteran when it comes to kickboxing. He has a long kickboxing record. Very fancy kicks, great striking, very awkward and unorthodox, but you can definitely see that he's a high-level striker. Now, he's only had 3 MMA fights, and definitely not against the level of competition that Jeremiah Wells has faced on the regional scene. But we do got someone here who is a precision striker. They're making a lot of attempts on really showcasing him as Israel's teammate, in the event that you're going to see him do well. But looking at this fight here, Jeremiah Wells does come up as the minus 225 favorite. And I can see why. He has great grappling credentials, training with those Philly boys out there, you know, Sean Brady, Andre Petrosky. And Jeremiah Wells brings a heavy power game, power wrestling, very strong individual. And honestly, when I look at these two guys, when I see Jeremiah Wells and I see Mike Mathetha, or Blood Diamond as they call him, I see two guys that are going to go and sit in the pocket, and we're going to have to sit here and think to yourselves, how's this fight going to play out? Blood Diamond having only 3 fights, you know, what is his knowledge when it comes to the full MMA game here? And Jeremiah Wells is a power grappler. You saw that in his fight with Worley Alvarez, how he maintained top control for majority of the first round and still ended up getting the finish on the feet. He's got nasty power in his hands. Very dangerous fighter here, and even though he's taking this fight on short notice, he's had a couple fights fall out over the last few months, and the opponents have just dropped out, so he slots right in. It's not like he hasn't been training. He should be in great shape for this fight. Now, early lean, I gotta go with Jeremiah Wells. Just more ring time as far as MMA goes. He's got excellent power. And he has the ability to take the fight to the floor. We don't know too much about Mike Mathetha at this point, but probably a stay away. Moving on up, we got a bantamweight matchup between Douglas De Silva de Andrade versus Sergey Morozov. Now, this is an excellent fight. Douglas De Silva de Andrade coming off of a nasty knockout against Gaetano Perello here. And great competitive fight with Lauren Murphy. And I actually had to play on Lauren Murphy here. It wasn't as much as the unanimous decision says. It wasn't much of that, because you have to understand this is up at featherweight, and Douglas De Silva de Andrade, very dangerous, power in both hands, and you know he's at a tender age. But if you look at these losses, right, he's up at a featherweight to an undefeated guy in Lauren Murphy, Petr Yan, obviously, Rob Font. You know, Zabir Tugagov, like these ain't no scrubs that he's losing to here. But on the other hand, you got a guy in Sergey Morozov where he looked phenomenal against Khalil Taha, and you know, it really depends on how you weigh a win like that between Khalil Taha. But you know, he's a power striker, kind of very similar to Douglas De Silva in the same sense, heavy hands, and has the ability to close distance. So this is a matchup he has technically faced before here, and this loss here to Umar Nurmagomedov, well, he's an undefeated prospect that seems like one of the most dangerous guys around. But we're going to have to see how his career plays out. I got to say here, early leans to Sergey Morozov. He's got excellent striking, great grappling. He has great experience. And if you look at here, he's definitely the younger fighter. And I also like the metrics as far as he's well, I mean, they have him listed here as 5'7". I think that's generous. But I'm pretty sure when they're face to face and they size up, Sergey Morozov is going to have a decent bit of a size advantage here. So going with Sergey Morozov. Moving on down, we got Jacob Malkoun versus AJ Dobson. Now, this is an interesting fight, a fight I want to get involved in. We've seen the line for AJ Dobson start at -200 and drop all the way down to a -160 here. They have it here on Tapology, but I actually have it lower in my book. They have it at a -125. At AJ Dobson, power puncher, aggressive fighter. You saw in the Contender Series here, he had a fight with Hashim Argahatha, and he just came out hard, excellent power shots, and then ends up getting the rear naked choke after he stuns Hashim on the feet. And he just looks like a phenomenal athlete. Great power in his hands. 30 years old, surprisingly. And with only 6 fights of his career, I know he has a decent amateur record, dating back to when? 2012, right? So he's been at this game for a very long time. 10 years he picked up MMA. So you have to understand, 10 years he picked up MMA, and he hasn't been defeated in 5 years. This is someone that's progressing. Jacob Malkoun, though, that performance he had against Al Hassan, I mean, excellent grappling, excellent pressure, decent hands too as far as when switching it up, going for the takedowns. But he is going to be at a size disadvantage here. 4 inches of reach, according to Tapology, and almost 3 inches plus in height. You wonder in this spot if Dobson's just going to be the better overall athlete and just close the distance here on Jacob Malkoun. Tough fight to predict. Early signs, I'm going to have to say Jacob Malkoun early, but I really want to see the face-offs. I really want to see how they really physically size with one another and make my final call there. But I'm going to go with Jacob Malkoun to just put on the power grappling and eventually get the takedowns late in the rounds after he survives a hot start. But we'll definitely have to confirm that on the Friday show. Moving on up the card, we got the Black Jag Carlos Ulberg versus the Water Buffalo Fabio Cherant. Very low level MMA here. You got Carlos Ulberg coming in 2-1 favorite, and Fabio Cherant not looking good in his past 2 matches in the UFC. Not looking UFC material. So you got to wonder here, is this a setup fight to give Carlos a win? He is somebody I feel the UFC definitely wants to push, definitely wants to be successful, and he has amazing striking, right? The fight against Kennedy Njoku, even though he gassed himself out, the pace he threw, the combinations he threw, if he just finds a way to be more patient, and also I feel like, given the advantage of having a second go at this, pacing himself, maybe a little bit more spacing, instead of just completely emptying up the clip and trying to put him down. I feel like he really, did himself in that fight. I don't think this is too much of a contest. Fabio Cherant has decent hands, has showed that he could be completely out-grappled, so he's nothing to be terrified as far as the grappling department. I think the Black Jag here comes in, gets the KO early. Fabio Cherant loses 3 in a row and gets bounced out the UFC. Moving on up, we got a lightweight bout between Alexander the Great Hernandez versus Renato Moicano. Now, Renato Moicano fighting out of America Top Team, highly credentialed black belt. We saw him work out so much takedowns here on Jai Herb and smother him with the grappling. The loss to Fiziev, be that as may, I think Fiziev is a top 5 guy in the lightweight division. Damir Hazovic, you saw him get that early finish. So, he's been making good strides as far as defeating opponents. 1 loss to Rafael Fiziev here. But then you got Alexander Hernandez going through his, win-loss, alternating wins and losses here. With Drew Dober, gets KO'd. Chris Gutmacher, he gets the KO, but not the level of Renato Moicano. Fights a competitive decision with Moise. But, I mean, this is someone I feel like Renato Moicano would have success against, right? You just saw him get finished by Joel Alvarez. So, it depends how much you rate these wins here for Alexander Hernandez. But I got to say, I believe Renato Moicano is going to get it done with the grappling, get it done with the striking, and really put on a show here. Although the power of Alexander does concern me, I feel like Renato Moicano just has the veteran savvy and will have the wherewithal to avoid the big shots, land takedowns. He's been showing that he's trying to land takedowns over and over again in these fights, and he's changed up the approach. He's not relying too much on the striker. Moving on up here, we got a bantamweight fight between Ronnie Lawrence versus Manny Martinez. Like, another low-level fight with a big, heavy favorite, right? I think we all got to be careful of that, right? Neither guy even has 10 professional fights. Just has 11 here. But, you know, you got a guy in Ronnie Lawrence, you know, excellent athleticism, great takedown ability, amazing fluid and loose striking. You know, he's a very unorthodox guy. He shoots at the ankle very quickly. And you got a very talented striker, Manny Martinez, great boxing combinations, great pressure, and you wonder who's going to get the upper hand here. You know, we got a guy at 29 and 25. Ronnie Lawrence coming in a 3-1 favorite. I think Ronnie Lawrence is the rightful favorite, and he should win this fight, but considering the, you know, just how much, you know, experience they have in their career at this point, it is a little risky to lay 3-1 on these young fighters, but I got to go with Ronnie Lawrence here, and I got to win him by decision. Moving on up, we got a light heavyweight bout between William Knight versus Maxim Grishin here. And I've been hearing a lot of talk amongst the community as far as William Knight. I don't think so. I think Maxim Grishin here is the bigger, larger fighter here. He's going to have the ring experience. He's going to have the size. And I just feel like he's just going to out-veteran him in there. You know, we've seen William succumb to just getting completely dominated in the grappling by Dong Eunjun, and just with simple trip takedowns, you know. Other than that, William Knight's getting these finishes here, and then he gets a tough decision with Alonzo Menfield, and I just don't think Alonzo Menfield is good at all. And that fight arguably could have went the other way. So I guess Maxime Grishin is fighting Dustin Jacoby. He's fighting Marcin Tybura. Like, these are high-level guys. And he's getting the finish on guys he's got to get the finish on. I just don't see how William Knight is going to get it done. So I got to go with Maxim Grishin, and I'll say he wins by decision. Moving on down, we got a flyweight battle between Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. Been waiting for Alex Perez to make his return. You know, his last fight was against Figueiredo, when Figueiredo defended his title, and since then just been out of the picture, hasn't been fighting, and he's letting these other guys gain momentum on him in the flyweight division. I feel like he's just not been talked about enough. Matt Schnell is a guy that, you know, he has decent performances against lower level tier opponents, but loses to the higher tier guys, and I believe Alex Perez here is a higher tier guy. Great wrestling, great leg kicks, great striking. I feel like he's an all-around better fighter. -400 favorite. You know, it's very tricky, you know, considering that Matt Schnell has the size advantage here, especially with the reach department, 4.5 inches. Man, these 3-1 tags are very dangerous to bet. I think Alex Perez is the rightful winner, and I'm saying Alex Perez wins this fight by unanimous decision. Moving on down, we got a women's flyweight fight between Roxanne Modaferri and Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill is an undefeated prospect, looking dominant, coming off 3 finishes. She's a fighter that I've seen improve from fight to fight to fight, and I'm definitely going to be backing her in this situation. Roxy has talked about retirement. She's talked about not having fun anymore, and I could just see this fight not, you know, I could see Roxanne not meeting Casey O'Neill with the same intensity that she'll be having in this fight. I think she'll get finished early. I think Casey O'Neill's the real deal. And, yeah, she's fighting a 39-year-old Roxanne Modaferri, coming off 2 losses in a row, losing 3 out of her last 5. And this is just a takeover. The young Courtney Casey, I feel like she's going to dominate her with the grappling and get a rear naked choke in the second round. Moving on down, we got a heavyweight matchup between Andrei Arlovski and Jared Vanderaa, the Mountain. This is a fight I'm very interested in. I can't wait to see them physically size of one another. I feel like if Jared Vanderaa does have the extreme significant size difference, like size advantage, I would say you go with Vanderaa. He has great pacing. He's a big guy. I don't think Andrei Arlovski's going to want to be wrestling and tussling with a guy that size. and it's going to be a striking affair. Andre's a 43-year-old man. As much as he can keep it clean, you know, this is back with the crowd. This is back with a different type of energy. This isn't fighting at the apex in a controlled environment. I feel like, you know, certain mistakes might be made here. More instinctive behavior will be happening with that live crowd. And I could just see Arlovski just winning until he's not winning and allowing Jared Vanderaa to pile up damage on him. I like the underdog here in Jared Vanderaa, plus 150. I think you got to go with him. As much as I've been riding Arlovski through him winning 4 out of 5, I picked him in pretty much all these contests except for the Tom Aspinall one. So, but I got to say Jared Vanderaa could put a pace on him and knock Andrei Arlovski out. So I'm going to say Jared Vanderaa is a great dog. So I'm going to say Jared Vanderaa by decision. Moving on up to the main card. As you see, we got 15 fights here. So I'm trying to get through majority of these in a appropriate time frame. The main event opener, we got Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. 2 excellent lightweight fighters. Great strikers on both ends. Great pacing. You know, they're both coming in at 5'10". Haqparast having a 1-inch reach advantage. Haqparast coming off that tough fight with Dan Hooker. You know, he was dealing with some things in his personal life. Mother passed away, so, you know, we try not to take too much from that performance. Judging by the interviews today, he looked very, you know, looked like he was in much better spirits. And I think he's going to perform a little better than the last time we've seen him. Knockout loss to Drew Dober. And then you have a guy in Bobby Green who just be putting on these tremendous performances against quality opponents, Thiago Moises, Rafael Fiziev. And even though he's coming up short, he's just having such a great account for himself. This is a fight where a lot of people can see value in Bobby Green as the winner. Hard for me to go with Bobby Green because, you know, he always, you know, in close fights, he doesn't seem to get the decisions to go his way. And you just wonder if you might be in a situation where you think Bobby Green's going to win and he still doesn't win on the cards. Because if you watch Bobby Green fights, you know what I'm talking about. I think Nasrat Haqparast is the play here. He's the dog. It's going to be a close fight. And these judges' decisions don't ever seem to bounce Bobby Green's way. And I think he should just, you know, take it as it is. Nasrat has a little bit more power, so maybe those shots would be a little bit more appealing to the judges. Because this is going the full 15, right? I don't see any KO happening in this fight. So it's going to be going to a decision. And you're going to have to leave it in the hands, a competitive fight in the hands of the judges. Who do they see it for? I bet you might have an opinion Bobby Green wins. I bet you someone will have an opinion Nasrat Haqparast wins. This is a close fight, competitive fight. So I got to say Nasrat Haqparast by decision. Moving on up, we got a bantamweight fight here. Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo. And Marcelo Rojo fights out of Entram camp with Brandon Moreno. And you got Kyler Phillips fighting out of the MMA lab there with Sean O'Malley, John Crouch, and all that. Kyler Phillips is an excellent fighter. He's coming off a loss where he kind of gassed himself out, very similar to what I was saying with Carlos Ulberg. The only thing aside from that is that Kyler Phillips has showed you multiple performances where he could get the job done and where he performs well. He's an excellent striker, amazing reach, amazing grappling. He takes a lot of risk with the spinning attacks. And, you know, he does leave himself vulnerable to getting gassed out because he's doing too much. Marcelo Rojo is a guy that's going to stay in your face. So much pressure. Was putting a lot of pressure on Charles Jourdain when they fought, even though he got finished in the 3rd round. He took that fight on short notice. And he was fighting. And that was up a weight class at featherweight. So we're going to see Rojo here at bantamweight putting on the pressure. And coming in as a plus 260 dog, I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to take a shot at. But my pick is Kyler the Matrix Phillips, and I just see a dominating performance, probably a late stoppage, and he gets the KO win here and moves along up the bantamweight division. Moving on up, we got a middleweight fight between Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier and Derek Bronson, Blonde Bronson, right? Derek Bronson is on a run here. He's looking to win 6 fights in a row and call his shot at maybe a title shot with Israel Adesanya. He's got Jared Cannonier standing in his way. Great power puncher and Cannonier, strong physically. You wonder if Brunson's going to have the strength to really wrestle over and over again with Jared Cannonier without getting tired. And I feel like even when they're tired, Cannonier just has the better striking, better kicking ability, but they both have power. This is a fight where I see the crowd and the energy in the room having an effect, and the crowd reacting to every shot Jared Cannonier lands. You can imagine Derek Brunson taking a panic shot, not hearing his coaching from Henry Hoof there, and I feel that has helped him in his last few fights. It being in the Apex environment, being able to hear his coaches. That's something we've been seeing him at his most dominant, as far as Darren Till, Ed Shabazi, and Kevin Harlan. And you got to give it up. Jared Cannonier has been fighting tough fights. Calvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, Jack Hermanson, Anderson Silva, out of his prime, David Branch. But then he has losses to Glover Teixeira, Dominic Reyes, Jan Blomqvist. You got to give it up. Jared Cannonier's fought tough competition the whole way. And they're both 37, 38, around the same age. They say Bronson's got the size advantage. I kind of want to see them square up and be more certain of that. And I think if Cannonier does match up physically well or have the size advantage, you got to take him here. If not, Bronson could really implement that wrestling game plan. And maybe he doesn't even have to get hit by a shot. And he could get to the shot and take him down before he can land that big bomb. So I got to go with Jared Cannonier by KO. Moving on up to the co-main event. Probably the funnest fight on the card. We got Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. Both fighters have won 4 out of their last 5. Both coming off knockouts. We got a banger here. I don't see how this fight doesn't be exciting from the bell rings. And I don't know how long of a fight we're going to have here. Very surprising to see Derek Lewis with a 4-inch reach advantage according to Topology, and 6'3" to 6'2". If Derek Lewis has that reach advantage, I think that's going to come into play in this fight, as far as these guys who you imagine are just going to be swanging. Difficult fight to bet. Tai Tuivasa has those leg kicks that really could, put a stop to Derek Lewis. In all honesty, if he can land those leg kicks and be a little mobile early, pick his shots, and make Derek Lewis miss, he could win this fight. But is he going to fight that way, or is he going to go in there and just brawl and, see who the bigger man is that day? Not too much people are going to win shot for shot with Derek Lewis. Early nod is Derek Lewis by KO. Maybe I'll see something in the weigh-ins. Maybe I'll see something when I study the tape a little bit more. But the early nod is Derek Lewis by KO. And, probably halts Tai Tuivasa's win streak here. Now, to the main event. And I feel like this card's been pretty straightforward, too, as far as these matchups. Sizable favorites. And then the fights that aren't favorites are guys that, are very unproven. But as far as the betting goes, I feel very confident in this week and how it's going to end up. We got some excellent guys to put our money on this weekend. All lined up and ready to do their job. Obviously, it's MMA. Crazy things can happen. But you got to like the guys on the card this weekend as far as betting goes. But this is the rematch where Israel Adesanya completely claimed undisputed championship of the world in the middleweight division. Israel had a fantastic performance from the walkout to the finish. And as much as I love Rob Whittaker here, I just see this being a situation where he might just be number 2 to Israel Adesanya. And he lives in the Izzy era, and there's nothing wrong with it. He is a younger fighter. You imagine he would have some more room to grow and more time to improve. But that 7-inch reach advantage to someone like Israel, being 6'4" to 6 foot, the reach advantage, it's just something I find too difficult to overcome. And even if Robert wrestled him for a round or 2 rounds, I just don't see Robert finishing him on the ground. So you imagine the fight's going to eventually get back up to the feet, and Israel will do what he does best. There's just too much ground to cover Robert Whittaker. And maybe he's not a true middleweight, and he's a true welterweight, and this is why he won't be able to compete in this area. I think Israel Adesanya wins. I do think it's going to be a decision this time, a complete outclassing, but looking forward to an excellent fight. The champion, Israel Adesanya, has dominated this middleweight division. Just came off signing a big new contract, so you got to be excited for that. UFC 271, Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. Please look out for the breakdown shows on Friday, where we'll be releasing our final thoughts, our final predictions, and our betting slips, so that we can earn some money this weekend. And thank you again for watching Southpaw Picks. Catch you later.